that's a harder argument to justify your fee than Dean's been working with me for the last 2.5 years, navigating the decision-making process of when do we sell and when do we buy and if and how do we buy. You and 2 other agents that you're in an interview process with. There's no longer this explain to me why I should pay your fees. It's like, no, you're just my guy. And if that's how you can operate and take a 3, 5, 10-year view on prospecting, it's easy to articulate that you're worth your money.
All right, man, we have a fantastic guest today, the one and only Phil M. Jones, right? That is in the house here. And Phil, this has been, we're waiting for this for a long time. Thank you for being on the show.
Oh, my pleasure to be. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely, man. So if you want to just give the audience some idea of like your history and introduce yourself and kind of get an idea of who Phil Jones really is right now.
Oh, man. I mean, we could spend an age on that, but I've been speaking, training, coaching, consulting professionally now for almost 20 plus years and helping individuals that need to sell things to understand how to sell things in a more integrity-based way, how to be able to converse in high-stakes environments with greater levels of confidence and competence. Wrote a tiny little book called Exactly What to Say that's now sold over 3 million copies worldwide, translated into 30 plus different languages. Been paid to present professionally over 3,500 times in 59 different countries. And also have spent a huge chunk of time inside the real estate industry, helping real estate agents and team leaders to understand what to say, when to say it, and how to make it count, and to grow both confidence and competence inside the conversations that matter. And that's resulted in me aligning with giant coaching organizations like the Tom Ferry organization and helping craft and create conversational-based training programs for some of the biggest brokerages in the real estate space.
Yeah. That's amazing. And so one of the questions that I wanted to get an idea of from you is like, take us back to like the early days. How did you get created? Because you came into this space. There's a lot of different people that talk about like how to say things and like what to say, but really what do you feel like attributed to your molding of this and how you got resonated to this type of line of work?
Sure. I've been in business for a long time. So I started in business when I was 14 years of age, started knocking on the doors of my neighbors, asking them politely if they wanted their cars washed. And those early asking type scenarios resulted in me realizing that if you don't ask, you don't get. And what many people would do is they wouldn't say yes or no. They'd just ask the how much question. And that intrigued me. I learned that it really meant that they were remarkably interested, providing my prices were kind of reasonable. And I did okay with that little car cleaning business, so much so that by the age of 15, I wasn't going to school quite as often as I should. And the reason behind that was that I was making more money than the bulk of my school teachers. I had the kids in the year below that were now cleaning the bulk of the cars and was running a real operation. And I built a lot of service-based businesses through my teens. So, events business, garden landscaping business. If it was service-based and I could be the value between what somebody wanted and what somebody else had, is I learned that I could often get paid quite well for being that value gap between the thing that somebody wanted to be able to get rid of and the thing that somebody else wanted. And even the simple example in my events business is nightclubs and bars and restaurants wanted to get high dollar return for their space on a Tuesday evening. Kids under the age of 18 wanted to be able to go to bars and nightclubs without the need to have alcohol. Is I could bring those two things together and we'd run events on Tuesdays, right? And run 6 till 10 p.m. events on Tuesdays, high ticket price. And they could be charging $3 a soda and still getting a fairly big bar tab on another night that they would have been closed. Like that's what my business was based on, looking at an opportunity and bringing 2 people together. I then found myself in a leadership space at a very young age. I was a senior leader inside a big department store retail group at the age of 18 through to the age of sort of 22, 23, and was leading teams of people who were significantly older than me. And I got a lot of age prejudice as well, like because I was 18, 19, 20 and looked even younger. I think this is why I'm proud of this facial hair at this point in time in my life. And what I learned is that I could never direct anybody to do anything. That sort of old-fashioned manager tells people what to do type approach. I never had the ability to use that as a leadership style because they'd be like, who are you little pipsqueak, to tell me what to do? And I learned the only way I could ever help guide and lead other people was to study the successful people inside an organization and then bottle that brilliance and share it back with others. So, for example, Richard, like if you were struggling to be able to make outreach towards new clients, and Dean was the number one in the company at being able to do that, I'd follow Dean's behavior and I'd say, hey, Richard, like, I know what you're looking to do is blank, and Dean's significantly better than that than you are. There are 3 things Dean does that you don't do. I wondered if you know what they are, or if you'd like to know what they are.
Okay.
And that would be how I would start to lead other people to create change, is I just use the proxy of excellent to then be able to transfer that information back. And it meant that I became obnoxious about studying peak performance inside organizations I work with. I'd just be studying peak performance. And then you start to see habits and patterns. And what you learn is, outside of hard work and hustle and product knowledge and education, the differentiator between good and great is people who are great knew exactly what to say, when to say it, and how to make it count. They knew the power of being able to have refinement and repetition within usable word sequences in moments they'd step into time and time again. They had an efficiency in their process that nobody else talked about. And this fascinated me and blew my mind. And I've been studying it for circa 25 years, is finding the success language that moves people to action. I started a sales training company back in 2008, and it didn't matter what I teach people. What they'd be taken away from my trainings is like, I still want more of those magic words, Phil. Still want more of those magic words. And they'd want the precise language, the precise frameworks. I wrote a book in 2011 called Magic Words. That book was what later became an evolution in 2017 and became exactly what to say. And I've been now helping over 800 different industries to think about how they can use persuasive language more effectively to lead people to better outcomes that win for both parties. And I think that's the key point. Like, it wins for both parties. Like, we've grown up in a world where it's like sales success is I won the sale, I won the listing, I won the client, I won the argument. And that sort of old-fashioned 80s belief is at the expense of the consumer. Yet winning in 2024 and into our future means that no. Like, we both have to win to win. It can't be I win and you lose. And you look at Wolf of Wall Street or Glengarry Glen Ross or any of these kind of always be closing type mindsets, and they wouldn't work today because of the transparency and visibility towards a consumer. Is the reputation and reviews would then be like, no, you might have convinced me to do something, but you actually didn't deliver your promise. You suck.
That's true.
So yeah, that's been kind of my line of work, and I've rewritten playbooks inside of organizations. I've tried to stop the industry of real estate scripting and help people craft and create better scripts for themselves. Mm-hmm. And yeah, without going into too much more detail, that's a sort of potted history of my background.
Love that. Yeah, I mean, 7 years flew by, and you've helped, over 2 million. I mean, back then, 2 million, 3 million people easily, right? Yep. Many different continents. Does it matter outside of the words that we're saying? Because our Phone Warriors group is a group of real estate agents, over 1,400 of us, which we prospect daily. So we start with the phone. So is there any tonality, any tricks, or any different ways to say a particular word to maybe keep the prospect on the phone versus like hanging up right away? Like, what could you maybe give a little snippet of the, because
I have a lot of thoughts about this, and one big one is the diminishing success that can be had from cold calling people. And I don't believe that cold calling is dead. That's not what I'm saying. What I believe is that there are more and more people, and a growing number of people, that choose actively to not answer their phone. Okay. Like, I'm one of them. You cannot call me on the telephone. I am permanently on Do Not Disturb. The only time I will be off of Do Not Disturb is like in situations like now. My mother-in-law is in hospital for a routine operation, but my phone is off of Do Not Disturb right now in case my wife needs to catch me in an emergency, etc. But any other time I'm in Do Not Disturb. You cannot call me. I do not listen to voicemails. And I've also learned that I'm not alone. We've done some science and research around this. My friend Jason Dorsey runs a human behavior organization, has done research studies on this. And the majority of people in the age bracket between 30 and 50, i.e. in real estate, our customer base, looking to be able to make moves, will actively choose to not answer the phone without that phone call being scheduled first.
Okay.
I don't know if you do this in your own life. Like, do you have buddies that if they called you blindly, you think there's a problem, but if they text you first and said, "Hey, buddy, you got a minute?"
That's
The
true.
text gives permission for you to be able to reply to. So what I'd be looking at from having more success on the phone right now is to say, how do you increase the number of scheduled phone calls that you can make? How do you use tools like email and contact forms and digital downloads and text message to mean that the phone call is at the permission of the other person? Because sure, you can sneak attack people. You can get them into a phone call, and we can use techniques to keep them engaged and have them on the phone. But the challenge in the real estate space right now is the goal is that we want to maintain a relationship, prove that we're valuable, demonstrate empathy, help somebody over a long-term mission. So the aggressive sales tactics that could be used to keep them on the phone have you being a non-identity to the identity that you'd like to be seen as the most valuable person. So I'd be doing a lot today to say, well, how do I prospect using text message to get permission-based phone calls? And we've been experimenting a lot of this with real estate teams where we'll send, I'm not sure if it's for you, but how open-minded would you be type text messages and getting people like, yeah, I'd love to learn more about that. To then say via text, like, when would be a good time for us to explore this further? And they're like, anytime after 5. And you're like, how would you feel if I call you at 5:15 this evening? They're like, that'd be awesome. And actually using some back forth on text message to get to a point that the other person is excited about the phone call and is in the right environment to have the kind of conversation you'd like to have. Because often when you're sneak attacking somebody with a cold call, you might get them on the phone, you might keep them in the conversation, but it's highly unlikely that they were in an environment to have the type of conversation you'd like to have with them.
Is this based on, though, Phil, like what you're saying is that you want the prospect to be as attentive as possible to the service
100%.
or, right, this is what we're talking about. So like,
think of
as
it from
an
a leadership point of view, Dean.
So
And
you're
yeah.
reframing, right? Like I hear you always talk about reframing the sale process, right?
Well, let's move it out of context, right? Is if you're leading a team full of people and you want to have a conversation with an underperforming agent in your team, you can sneak attack them when they come through the office. You can tap them on the shoulder and say, have you got a minute? And they're going to say, yeah, sure. If they have a minute or not. And you can then deliver them the news about like all the things they're doing wrong and the things that they should be doing differently. And you get everything off your chest that you wanted to get off your chest, but they don't receive that information right because they didn't have the processing to get ready for that conversation.
Okay.
You'd be better to tap them on the shoulder and say, like, I know that you've said that you wanted to be doing better than what you're currently doing right now. When would be a good time for us to get together, this week to explore what's happening and what needs to be done differently? And they're like, well, I got some calls I need to make now, but I'm free this afternoon. And you're like, well, how are you looking after 4:15? And they're like, yeah, I'm good with that. You're like, well, what about my office 4:30? They're like, that's great. What happens between now and 4:30 is they get prepared to come to that conversation with a game plan and be ready and are more responsible to take the next actions. And I think the same is true when we're prospecting for clients right now. Sometimes we burn or bruise opportunities because we tried to have the conversation we wanted to have before we had permission too soon. It's like we messed up the first date because we tried to have the first date when we were actually just making eyes.
Okay. So like so let's take a different approach then. Like, let's say that you're talking about, like, going back to that example of the leadership, right? Okay, you're saying to someone, hey, do you have a minute to, like, I want to talk about something, like, okay, and then you start talking about it, but it doesn't go anywhere because, so what I'm hearing is different frameworks. What I'm hearing is getting people, so knowing what to say and how to say it clearly is like your thing, but really it's also understanding it. Would you say that it only really works with the right, like, okay, I'm in the right mental frame to have this conversation, and that's when the words really work?
Well, Dean, you sat through our certification program, and the thing we spend a huge amount of time talking about at the start of our certification program is our 4 cornerstones of conversational excellence. And the first of those is something I've often shared from stage in keynotes as a joke, and it's that the worst time to think about the thing you're going to say is in the moment you're saying it. Now, that is not a joke. I'm deadly serious. People think success on the phone or success in sales conversations is all about knowing your scripts, knowing your words, knowing your lines. Now, that's all useful. But what we're really looking at being able to do is to master moments. So the starting point is like, what are the moments that matter most? I got big brokerages talking to me right now about like, how do we help our team be able to share their value proposition more effectively on the buy side? Is like, what are we doing to be able to demonstrate to consumers that we're worth our fees, etc. I'm like, whoa, 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 whoa. Before you get into buyer's agency agreement, before we sneak attack people with terms and conditions about how we're going to get paid,
Yeah.
wouldn't we be better to say, like, where is the right moment for us to bring up, here are our terms of engagement? Where does that moment exist? And they're like, well, we shouldn't show them any properties until we've got a buyer's agency agreement in place. I'm like, okay, yeah, that's really utopian and idealistic. That you're not going to engage with somebody and a lead comes through that somebody wants to see 123 Main Street, and you're like, I'm not going to show you unless you sign this piece of paper that you're going to pay me a fortune first. Where does the moment exist? And there's no right answer to that, but there is a consideration. Like, how do you want your recipe or your playbook, your unique way to be able to show up, that you explain to somebody, here's how I can help you achieve blank? And I use the analogy of comparison to the restaurant business, right? Is there are some restaurants that you pull up to a speakerphone and you tell them what you're ordering and then you pay for it before you get your food. And there are other restaurants that you can take a seat, you can rack up a bill of thousands of dollars without any form of credit check. And at the end of it, they assume that you're just going to pay what they asked for and add 25% gratuity. They're all in the restaurant business. No one is the right way of being able to do things, but there needs to be a consideration of where do the moments exist within your customer experience for you to have the conversation you'd like to have. And that could be buyer's agency agreement, could be referral, could be review, could be price adjustment, could be marketing plan, it could be differentiator versus competition. But the work I'd be doing before you even look at working on scripting is, can we define the moments where we would like to have the conversations with pre-agreed outcomes? And the mistake I see most heavy prospecting agents make right now is they try and have tomorrow's conversation today.
Okay. So what would you suggest then? So if we have some practical advice for people out there right now, is that how do you know you're getting into the right moment to present what is going to help them get what they want?
So let's just say, like give me any form of user group that you might be prospecting. Just give us a data bucket.
Okay. Let's say you're calling a neighborhood and you're looking to let them know about a recent sale that, just happened. That's not hit the public records yet.
Okay. So you're just calling a neighborhood, and how do they know you? What is their relationship to you?
They might have, there's no relationship. It's just like a sign they might have seen or online, etc.
Okay. So the relationship is that there is no relationship. Yep. That's what we 100% or somewhere near certain, is that they probably don't know each other, and we don't necessarily have permission to make this call. Where did you get the data from to make the call?
Let's say the software service that we have.
Okay. So we've scraped this data professionally in some way.
Correct.
And we're calling somebody in neighborhood. There's nothing wrong with all this. I'm just saying, how do I use the truth to be able to help me have meaningful conversations?
Sure.
So we're using the fact that a house is sold in their neighborhood to create permission to have a conversation. And we're calling a stranger because we believe that they might at some point in the not too distant future potentially have some need to either buy or sell a home. Which is a fair approach, right? Because we live in an industry where almost every human being is a prospect in some way, shape, or form.
Absolutely.
Yep. So I'd be using my truth to build a framework around what we call OFQ. And that's opening fact question. But I would probably look to utilize this in... See, so much of what I teach is about doing work before the work. So I understand that we could cold call this person. But what I'd look to be able to do is firstly to say, can I just take a beat and do a little bit of research about them? If I find out the guy's called Dean Clark and he's a real estate agent and he's in New Jersey, I might just, before I hit dial on the number, and the only thing I know is his name and his number, I might just Google search him. I might find a social profile. I might like a post or two. I might add a comment to LinkedIn. I might add something that says I'm not a call center in India. Like, I'm a human being too. Some form of evidence in their world that I'm a human. Then what I might look to do is, if I have their phone number, I might send a simple text message. I'd say, hey, this is Dean from ABC Realty. I know we don't know each other yet, but is this Rich? Question mark.
And I say yes.
You say yes. I say, my guess is that you're busy right now, but we have some information about a property that's sold in your area that I thought just might be interesting for you to know about. When would be a good time for us to be able to have a quick chat about it? And I'd try to do that over text message first, holding a curiosity gap in the text frame for them to then say, like, what is it? Where is it? What do you have in mind? You say, probably it's easier to talk about on the phone. Are you free later tonight? And they say yes. But now what I've got is a conversation with purpose, and I've got a curiosity gap between me and them that has them like, what does he want to talk to me about? So they're showing up a little more anticipatory towards the conversation. By alternative, I'm using a bait and switch. Like, that's the other thing I'm doing, right? Is I'm calling them and saying, hey, good news is house has just sold in your neighborhood. You probably haven't seen it happen yet. It hasn't triggered on the MLS. You maybe haven't seen the data. It's sold significantly over ask. My guess is that you have no desire to make a move right now, but would it be intriguing to you to find out the kind of number it sold for and what yours might sell for if you were looking to make a move right now? Like, we're having those kind of conversations. But if we have them when we've humanized a little first, it's like romancing the prospect a touch. That when you get to the conversation, your levels of conversion will be higher. So I'd rather work 30 prospects to have 20 meaningful conversations to work 100 prospects to have 20 meaningful conversations.
Got it. Because that was my next. So Phil, sorry to cut you off, but that's my next question, right? I feel like a lot of people listening to this right now, whether on YouTube or the community, they're going to say, yeah, but it's not as efficient. But really, it is efficient from what I'm hearing, because you're just concising the list down by a personal iPhone, let's say, or Android, whatever you use, text message to get to the people that are ready to actually talk to you, as opposed to blanketly calling 100 people and go that. Is that what you're basically saying?
It is. And I think that this is the future where the industry needs to move to as well. Like, we've had a decade that says you throw enough mud at this, enough's going to stick to the wall that you can have a very buoyant future, right? You make the calls and you'll get the results. But what we've had is we've had the benefit of a rising market, and we've had the benefit of globalization. So what that means is, like, your prospect base now geographically is a bigger prospect base than what it was a decade ago. But so is everybody else's now. So it means that theirs overlaps yours, and what I haven't seen change significantly in the data I've seen is the number of homes that sell per year in the United States of America. It's about the same year in, year out. And like, when it's down a little one year, it then like normalizes. Take any 3-year spread, it's about 6 million homes a year, right? Like, that's what we're looking at. But you've now got more people fighting at the same spot. What I'd be looking for today is obnoxious levels of conversion. I'd also be looking to ring fence prospects to the point that I know that they are not necessarily going to look to make a real estate transaction in the next 30, 60, 90, which is what people have been trained to focus on, right? 30, 60, 90. I'd be looking at anybody that wants to make a real estate transaction in the next decade. I want to learn about what those needs are today. And I want to work on harvesting a decade-long prospect list from the prospecting activity that I'm creating today. And what it means is I'm not just skimming the cream off the top of somebody who's potentially ready to make a move in the next 12 months. I'm finding out from every meaningful contact I have what that person's plan are. And now I can make meaningful next step touch points. Instead of following up, checking in and touching their base, I can be, hey, last time we spoke, you mentioned that you were potentially going to make a downsizing move once the kids are finished in middle school. And like, how's everything going in middle school? What's happening with the job? Where are you guys at? When was the last thing an equity check? Like, we're way more helpful than offering to be helpful. And this then brings me to a really important point, which is please, please, pretty please, do not pay for leads today. And certainly do not pay for leads in 2025 that you could have earned today.
What do you mean by that? Can you go deeper?
What I mean by that is, if everybody in the planet can be a lead, why would you waste a contact with somebody today because they're not ready to do business today, to let them go cold, for them to hit a button when they're late at night Zillow porning, to represent themselves as a lead for you to give away 35% or more of your money, all because you weren't slow enough to understand that person's real understanding and didn't control their behavior well enough to mean that they came to you first.
Wow.
So what I'm looking to be able to do is, through all of my prospecting, is how do I get to be ahead of Zillow? How do I get to be ahead of Realtor.com? How do I get to be that they don't click the tell me more, schedule an appointment button. They screen grab it and send you a text message.
And that's the benefit you're saying of prospecting in the future versus doing and paying for the leads that we've gone on for the last 10 years of just, and now it's just like so outrageously expensive, but it's like, you know, hasn't even make sense to be in that game, right?
And look at where the world is going in real estate, from, you know, the NAR stuff and the buyer's agency stuff and everything that's going on there, is people are questioning the value of a real estate agent. It's very difficult to say that you're worth your money if the only thing you did is help somebody who found the home they were looking to buy themselves online to go view that home, then make an offer on that home, and then bring it to the closing table. That's a harder argument to justify your fee than Dean's been working with me for the last 2.5 years, navigating the decision-making process of when do we sell and when do we buy and if and how do we buy.
Yeah.
And there's no longer any, like, it's you and 2 other agents that you're in an interview process with. There's no longer this explain to me why I should pay your fees. It's like, no, you're just my guy. And if that's how you can operate and take a 3, 5, 10-year view on prospecting, it's easy to articulate that you're worth your money.
Yep, 100%.
And better than all of that is the reputation you change within your locality is exponentially grown, because people are like, what do you mean they're not worth the money? I mean, my guy is amazing. He finds me out all this information about properties I'm interested in, even though I'm not ready to be able to make a move yet. They only get paid when we actually find a home anyway. And they're doing all this work for me in the background to help us make smarter decisions. Like, I get it. That guy might not be worth it, but my guy, he's worth it and some, because of the value that they're appreciating.
Wow.
So it's a different approach, but prospecting has often been seen as like, are you hunting or are you farming, right?
Correct.
And marketing is a farming game. We've then added some prospecting phone calls to that farming game, and then it's like, no, we need to be the hunter and we got to be closing. My game is fishing. So I'm not hunting nor farming, I'm fishing. I know where the fish are, I know what the bait they're like. And sometimes I might let those fish get fat before I bring them in.
So like, you know, I've seen quotes, and the main focus for you is just keep having conversations, as many meaningful conversations you can have in a day. And then over time, it's going to be the compound effect to where hopefully if you have 1,000 people, let's call it a year that you're following up, maybe 10 to 20% easily fall off of that to now converse into transactions. And then, but you built a true relationship and rapport versus just, like you said, having tomorrow's conversation today.
Yes. And there's a ratio I've seen appear in every industry I've ever had the privilege of working in. And it's a ratio I call 10-5-2. You can have meaningful conversations with people who meet your target market. 5 of them will have a genuine need for what it is that you're selling, and 2 of them will go on to be able to buy. The trouble is, though, that most industries and most people in those industries say, give me the 5 and I'll take the 2. Give me the 5 and I'll take the 2. But I'm like, no, to get the 5, you got to speak to the 10.
Interesting.
The 10 get you the 5 get you the 2. And what we have in the real estate industry is like, no, we're called 10 and we'll get 1. I'm like, no, use the 10 to get to the 5 to get to the 2. Now 10 equals double the productivity it would have done than if you were just trying to find the people who are ready in the final mile.
Wow.
And what's magic there as well is the 5 who are wrong today are also part of a future 10 again. Like this is a harvest that keeps self-reciprocating.
Right. So
whereas
like base, yeah.
The tactics that we've been deploying as an industry for a decade assume there is an infinite amount of opportunity. And there isn't. There's a finite number of people within your marketplace that are going to make a move. It is finite. And it's no different than the people who are building social media followings that say things like, I got 20,000 on Insta and 15,000 on LinkedIn and 15,000 on Facebook, so I've got 50,000 followers. I'm like, you don't. Many of those people overlap.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, we manipulate data to support an argument. Yeah, if you want to win in a prospecting world, you have to be realistic. And the mantra for real estate in my mind is obnoxious levels of conversion.
And that's where we're heading, which is always the next step too, right? And eliminating all distractions around us, of being able to be very concise in what the mission is, right?
How would you feel as a real estate agent right now if you could look at your CRM and as a result of your prospecting activity, you're like, I got 17 families that I'm pretty certain are going to sell at some point in the spring of 2025. And there are 6 that I know well that fall of 26 is where they're looking. I've got, a family that have an aspiration about being able to do a new build construction if the right land presents itself. Like, you actually had this giant 3 to 5 year prospecting map where you said, I know what's really going on. Instead, what we do is we say, just checking in, just touching base, just following up. Look, if there's anything I can do to help, please don't hesitate to contact me. I'm here. I'm your resource. I'm your trusted advisor. You can trust me. Would be better to be like, one of the trigger point is, John's probably going to start taking Social Security in 2025, and I'd like to finish my work then. And if we can, be smart with our savings, and if nothing goes wrong with Janice in her college, and she doesn't need to come home, and things go well in like her relationship with Jimmy, and like they go on to get married, what we're probably going to do is move to Florida. And like, if you know that, and then you can manage that prospect through those known entities, all of your conversations are like, how's work? But you can't wait till the government starts paying you back some of that hard-earned money you put in. It was the latest for Janice at college. How's she getting on? She's like, she's doing great. And her and Johnny still going steady? Yeah, they're looking good. Like, all you're doing is you just, is what you told me is true still true? And is that story still navigating, or is that story potentially looking to change?
That's so, I mean, Phil, this has been like that right there to me. I hope you guys are listening to this, because that right there is like, you're not just checking in. You're not just doing the normal stuff that everyone, because basically when you hear agents doing that, is what you're saying is, hey, I didn't do enough due diligence to find out more on the first call or two to understand what your needs are for me to actually check in on something that is legitimately like, okay, you're retiring this, whatever, or you have something going on. That's really what you're saying, correct?
Yeah, exactly. And like, very, very real situation in my world today is like I have a family member that's in the hospital right now. And my wife is highly aligned to this and dealing with it day to day. And her phone is blowing up with messages of people saying, look, if there's anything I can do to help, please don't hesitate to ask. How helpful is that when you're in that scenario? So actually, I'm dealing with this high pressure, compassionate environment, and now I have to reply to you to tell you what help looks like. Like, if you don't know enough to be helpful, don't offer help. Right?
This is what I've been saying for years. This is great. I love it. Just keep going.
And you would agree, is like, when we make the call out to anybody and we say, hey, I'm just checking in, I'm just following up, at least to me, when I get the cold call, like, it's like when you go to the department store, somebody asks if you need help, like, no, I'm good. You'd rather walk around for 2 hours to find the item. But when you hear that on the other end of the phone call, doesn't you're like, yep, automatic salesperson. So it already triggers a negative connotation to that conversation, right? But it's so what you're saying. What are you saying?
The trigger to watch for is the word just.
Just, okay.
It is what just does in most sets of circumstances, not all, but in most, is it's forcing permission. I wonder how many times you've used it. Like, I've just got to send this email, or I just got to get the dishes done, or I just need to, like, what we're doing is we are justifying something that we had no right to justify.
Oh man, this is great.
It's funny because I actually thought like saying, hey, it's just, it's like just Uncle Phil, right? Like, it's like It's like, oh, like, we're part of the family, we're part of this. Like, I always use that word to be like,
Sure.
hey, it's leverage to over your way. But you're saying it brings out the unjustification of the conversation now.
And there's nothing wrong with it. It'll work with, 5.6 out of 10 efficiencies. What would work with 9.6 out of 10 efficiencies is knowing something that was relevant. And that's back to that structure of opening fact question. Polite opening, mutually agreeable fact, easy to answer question.
Yep.
If I called you and I said, hey, Richard, I know it's been 6 months since we last spoke. You're like, yep, that's true. Last time we were together, you mentioned that what you might be thinking about doing is starting an investment portfolio and giving some consideration to being an Airbnb host.
Absolutely.
And then yep, I did say that. I wasn't ready at the time, but if I got a bonus, I was thinking with the idea of potentially investing in real estate. That's a fair reason for you to be able to check in with me. He hasn't said checking in, but he is checking in. And your inside voice is like, that's right, that's right, that's right. And then I put an easy to answer question on the end and said, like, are you still planning to be a host, or have you given up on that idea? And you're like, yeah, I'm still planning to be a host. You're like, got it. What I then say is, well, how have things worked out, with the additional funds that you were looking for a down payment? They're like, yeah, I got it. In fact, I got the money right in my last paycheck. I got $23,000 I don't know what to do with. And you're like, oh, cool. So where are you at? What's the plan? What are you thinking in terms of the kind of thing that you might want to hold? Like, I don't know whether I want a cabin, or I don't know whether I want to do something upstate. I don't know whether I want to do something local. I mean, there are some constraints, and they just share the mess with you. I'm like,
Wow.
So you then say, like, where do we go from here? And they're like, I don't know. You're like, well, would it help if we just grabbed a copy? Would it help if we sat down and maybe talk this through together and help you understand some of the pros and cons of each? They're like, yeah, that would be helpful. You're like, well, when would be a good time for us to make that happen? And they're like, oh, like, I'm busy Monday to Friday through the work, but I could maybe do an evening. You're like, well, I'm fairly busy with evenings with the families, but the kids have volleyball on Thursdays, and my wife takes them to volleyball. So I got Thursday nights free if a Thursday would work for you. And they're like, well, I guess I can make a Thursday work. You're like, well, where should we meet this coming Thursday?
It's just a natural. It's just a natural progression right there.
It's helpful.
Yes.
Be helpful. Don't offer to be helpful.
It's funny. Phil, I just realized something. I just realized that the investment I made, okay, 2 years ago, seeing you in the city, doing that training, our scripts, the playbook, the Dean Clark Group playbook that we have in our office is, I would say, looking back at it now, it's like 75% of what you taught in a different way, but like in my own version. That opening fact question is exactly how that neighborhood call goes. And it's just funny how you're saying this, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I actually took a lot from that. So if you guys haven't done his training, I highly suggest it. You'll find Phil obviously online. He's everywhere. But Phil, I have a question just before we kind of end things or kind of go this other direction is, like, I mean, how do you know you are in front of a world-class salesperson now? In terms of the fact, like, what I mean by that is, like, let's say you're buying something, like you're Phil Jones. So you're like the sales guy. You are the man. Okay. Yeah. What are some traits that you're in, like, automatically, like in the first 30 seconds of meeting that person, that you are like in your head, like saying, okay, this guy's got it. Whatever it is, he's got it. I'm going to buy from this guy and move forward. What are those traits that they have usually? It's all good because this will be edited out, so it's all good.
Yeah, it's cool. I mean, if I say the worst time to think about the thing you're going to say is in the moment you're saying it, it's a big question. You put some answers around it. I think the first thing is zero assumptions.
Okay.
Is you're working with somebody who is not even sure if they can help you, somebody who is keen to understand your current situation and offers approximately zero advice. And the opposite of that in the real estate world is the show up and throw up. Let me tell you why I'm awesome, why now's the right time to buy, why now's the right time to be able to sell, and everything is awesome, Lego movie style, right? Like that's the opposite. The other criteria I see in world-class sales professionals is they're not desperate. They are very okay to lose the scenarios that they were happy to lose. They're not looking for 100% conversion. They're looking to very quickly get to a point of, is this somebody I can help, or is this somebody who's not for me? And they're quite happy to let the not go. So they are picky, not desperate.
Not top of the outcome.
Yeah. They also have a quiet confidence, not that gregarious level of confidence. They're
What do you mean by
often
that?
the person who speaks second rather than the person that speaks first. They will gather as much information as they can without asking or inserting themselves into a conversation. They enjoy a period of silence. They will be a slower observer. And when they get into a negotiation, they appear neutral. They fight for the right outcome for the consumer. They don't fight for what the client said they wanted, nor do they fight for what they believe is the right idea. They fight for the right outcome. And that means that they are neutral going into a conversation. And I think sometimes the way you create a quiet confidence is knowing that you can help, but not knowing what help looks like. And I don't know if you've ever been there with a friend of yours. Like if you've got a friend of yours that's going through a trouble in their life and they don't know how to do it, you just know that I can help them rationalize this. I can help them find a path. You're not going in like you should stay together or you should break up. You're going in saying, I know you, I know what you stand for. I know that I can help you process this. I don't know what the outcome should be, but I know that I can help you process to a point of clarity. That's what great sales professionals do. They help people process complex decisions so that people feel clear about the decision they're going to make next. And note this is when somebody wants to make a big decision, there are three things they want to feel. Only three things they want to feel. One is smart, two is capable, and three is good. Smart, capable, and good. Smart means this is based on a body of knowledge and wisdom that says at the end of this, there's some level of intelligence that this was a smart idea. Capable means it's within my means to do what I'm being asked to do. And good is the one we'll explore last. But let's take the real estate market right now and interest rates. There are a lot of people that could not feel very smart about purchasing a home with a 7% interest rate. They could feel stupid, particularly giving up a 2.5% interest rate and swapping it for a 7% interest rate. There's a lot in their head that's like, that's not smart. Because I don't believe it's smart, I cannot do it. However, how do you make somebody feel smart about swapping 2.5% for 7%? Well, there aren't as many buyers in the market right now because of interest rates. You've done the work to build a hefty down payment. That means your equity position could be better long term because home ownership over a period of time is more attractive to you, etc. Is what would you rather have? Is a 300%, $300,000 extra equity gap because you can afford to carry a 7% interest rate for as long as you need to, or would you rather a 2.5% interest rate and give up the equity? Like that would feel smart, right? Capable means like, hey, good news is, buddy, because of your strong savings, because of your high quality jobs, because of the fact that your income is likely to go up and not down, because you're not threatened by the fact that you might need to move in a short period of time, you are very capable to carry a heavier interest rate than you would like right now. It's not a problem for you. Same reason why many of you can feel good about buying an overpriced flight ticket, even though you know it's more than you would like to pay. You'll pay it because you can afford to do it, and actually it achieves you an outcome that is greater. You can still feel smart about paying $2,000 for a $700 plane ticket. How do you end up feeling good about it? Well, you understand what a good decision is. How many decisions have you made in your life that you've never thought about again?
Almost all of them. I mean,
good number, right?
Yeah.
Most of them. Those are called your good decisions. Your good decisions are the ones you don't reconsider. Your bad decisions you try to do over. And what you believe are your awesome decisions, etc., you try to flex and you look to share with everybody what a great decision maker you are and look to amplify your decision-making prowess. Your good decisions are the ones you never think about again. As a real estate agent today, I'd be looking to say, how do you help consumers feel smart, capable, and good about the decision they're making? Not great, not awesome, not amazing. That means stop trying to help them find the perfect house. Stop trying to get them to think that they're going to get some form of amazing bargain. Stop having them think that they're going to become a big squillionaire through investing in real estate, and help them realize that they can make a good decision to put a decent roof over the head of their family for a price they can afford in a neighborhood they want to stay in for a house they can make a home. Like, that's a good decision. But good decisions we can make easily. When we're trying to make the greatest decision,
Right.
That was a true nugget gem just dropped, like a mic drop right there.
You
Yeah.
see this in recruitment as well, Dean, right? If you want somebody to come and join your team, if they can feel smart about it, capable of doing it, and they can feel good about the decision, they'll do it with confidence. If you're trying to overwhelm them with information and statistics, they don't feel smart. If they don't understand how to be able to leave their spouse in the recruiting game, then they won't feel capable, because as much as I might want to come to you, I don't know how to have the breakup conversation with my existing brokerage. That's the capable piece. And if you have them trying to think that this is the thing that's going to catapult their career to be the next level of awesome, this feels like it's too big of a decision. If it's like, no, this is just marginally better and a little bit easier and something that's going to give you the space to be able to grow, they're like, oh, all right, seems a pretty good decision.
Right. Almost downplaying like the fact that everything is we know is like, let's say, or we believe that it is like the greatest thing ever. You're just downplaying all the greatness that it is.
Yep.
Because in that moment, as long as you have all the right information, you've asked the right questions leading up to that point to find out what to diagnose that situation, then you can therefore give them that, as you say, smart, capable, and good. So, yeah.
And from a listing agent point of view, it is stop trying to pretend that what people want is the house sold for the most money in the shortest period of time.
Yeah.
It's always like, they might want it sold ideally in the month of October because they'd quite like to use it through the summer, and they care less about the price point. They just want fewer people coming through the home, and they don't want to have the hassle of living their life around open houses and your broker open that you're keen to run and the videographer, etc. They'd like it to be more discreet. And they're capable.
We're laughing because we're listing agents, and that's exactly true. I mean, you can't just expect that that's what the outcome is going to be for everybody, so.
And that goes what you said in the beginning, don't assume, right? And assuming is not going to get you to the end results, because like you said, because we say, hey, you can get this done in 30 days. That might actually do the complete opposite, to the point where they don't want to list it no more.
I definitely don't want you, because I was hoping to keep it for 90 or more, because we got family coming to stay. Right?
Exactly. But if you sat there and asked the right questions, they're like, oh, well, this is our game plan for the next 90 days, how we're going to do it. You stay in the home. So that's a great, and once again,
if you wanted to sell the kiddos bike, right? There would be a game plan to sell the kiddos bike that they've outgrown for the most money in the shortest period of time. And my guess is that most of you wouldn't want to follow that game plan. Right? You want to move the bike on in the most convenient way with a level of heartfelt emotion that another kid's going to love it somewhere near as much as your kiddo did. And you're going to want to make the whole process easy because you're so freaking busy with other stuff that the bike's not a big problem.
Yeah.
You want somebody to make life easier for you. You don't necessarily want somebody to make you the most money. And sometimes in the real estate space, we miss the flex that a giant part of our job is that we can just make this really easy for you.
Yep. 100%. Always say about convenience.
Yeah. Wow. And it might not be like you'll sell the house for the most money, but like you can say, well, I tell you what we'll sell the house for is that the most the market will afford. And when people say, well, well, what's that going to be? You're like, I don't know. Like if I did know, I'd be a time traveler, right? Like that would be true. But I tell you what can help them feel smart and capable and good is that the game plan we have can help them feel smart, that that's likely to get them the most that the market will have, is that they're capable for selling it within the parameters that you've said that it would likely to go for and what you believe they get offers for. And they can feel good about it if you're brave enough to say that, it could be worth as little as blank. They'll feel good about it for any number that's over that.
And that goes back to not being tied to the outcome. So
correct. Yeah.
Rich, bring us home. I know, we have a short window here. So
yeah, we have a couple more minutes before he's gonna go get his children. So you started this journey, 20 plus years ago. You became a world-renowned author, wrote books. When you first came into the industry, what was the main intention? What were you looking for? Like, if you were to fast track, on your tombstone, like, what do you want the world to know Phil M. Jones as? Like, what's your legacy? What do you want people to say? Hey, Phil was.
Um, like a decent human who helped the world know exactly what to say.
Perfect.
That's perfect.
Beautiful.
Well, listen, Phil, I appreciate you
Yeah.
spending, about almost an hour with us today, taking time out of your busy schedule. Thank you. And this was great information. I learned a lot. And
This was fantastic. This is, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
everything that we tout, in phone word communities and everywhere else. I mean, this is what it's all about. So thank you, Phil. This has been amazing.
Thank you. And my rally cry to everybody in Phone Warriors is like, stop counting conversations and start making more of those conversations count.
Amazing.
Absolutely. If people want to get a hold of Phil, you see his Instagram handle right there. And if anybody's interested to learn coaching with Phil, what's the best way for them to reach out to you?
Yeah, we don't do a huge amount of one-on-one coaching, but if you want to understand more about the certification programs that Dean mentioned, come to my Instagram, hit me up with the word certification. You'll get next set of dates. The other cool thing that many of your folks might be intrigued about is these guys are exactly what to say role play cards. So if you're familiar with the book and that you want to elevate your practice for how you can consider word choices and master moments more effectively, we've created a sequence of cards that is, well, that number of objections that exist in real estate. So everything from I'm already working with an agent to my best friend's sister's dog's newly licensed and wants to charge less, and looked at all the scenarios like seller leads and circle prospecting, etc., and expireds, and just created a tool that allows people to think about preparing for conversations in a more playful way than the traditional script practice. Is to allow people to say, let's play with the randomness of what can happen in the real world. And it's like, where am I? Oh, I'm speaking to a past client. What could they be concerned about? Well, they could be concerned about, like, my home is better than the comps that you've used and deserves a higher price. Or if I do sell, I'm thinking of just selling it myself. Like, how might you approach that conversation differently? How might you use some of these word choices to give consideration? We got 100 different games you can do with the role play deck. But people interested in that, again, ping me the word role play on my Instagram. You'll get a link through instantly about the role play cards and how they can be used just to level up your conversational competence.
Awesome.
Absolutely. Getting a pair myself. So thank you, Phil.
Hey, pleasure. Thanks, Jens. Keep up the great work and keep helping people level up their conversations. Appreciate the work you're doing.
You too.
Thanks, Phil. Take it easy.
See ya.